Most people place salt and wait for wealth to arrive. But what if I told you your salt might still be asleep? Salt is ancient. It remembers rivers, mountains, whispers, but only when you speak to it. Right now, in your home, you may have salt that's never been touched by real intention, never activated, never awakened, never ready to carry the wealth you've been asking for. Are you using salt or just placing it? And what if the answer to your prosperity isn't more salt, but awakened salt? Salt is not just salt. It is the Earth's oldest crystal, a memory of oceans, of fire, of stillness, and flow. In feng shui, we call it a purifier, a protector, a vessel of qi. But what most forget is that salt, like any sacred object, can lie dormant. Even the purest salt can remain energetically empty if we do not awaken it. You can place it, you can believe in it, but without qi, it cannot flow. And wealth is nothing without flow. In the language of energy, intention is the key, breath is the gate, and presence is the spark that turns salt into a quiet magnet for abundance. So tonight, before you place salt at your door, before you tuck it into corners, before you ask it to attract wealth, you must first wake it up, because the difference between blocked energy and flowing fortune is not the salt itself. It's the way you energize it. This is not just about salt. It's about calling prosperity into every grain you dare to awaken. Before we begin, there's something I need you to know. Tonight, we'll walk through 3 steps, 3 quiet rituals to cleanse, to charge, and to awaken your salt for true wealth flow. But it's in the 3rd step that the shift truly happens. It's where your intention meets structure, where energy imprints into matter, where salt becomes wealth's silent vessel. So stay with me, listen closely, and when we reach the final ritual, you'll understand why your salt has never worked the way it could. Let's begin. There's something we all do without realizing it. We buy the salt. We place it near the door. We follow the steps. Maybe even say the words, but still, nothing moves. No shift, no ease, no wealth. And the question quietly returns, am I doing something wrong? I used to think the answer was no, that maybe the universe needed more time, that I just needed to wait. But now I understand. It's not about waiting. It's about waking. You see, salt is not a passive tool. It's a vessel, a crystallized memory of Earth's movement, formed under ancient pressure, layer by layer, silence by silence. And like all things that carry memory, salt responds only to presence, to breath, to touch, to qi. In feng shui, we understand this deeply. Nothing flows where energy is still asleep, and that includes your tools, especially the ones that hold power to redirect tai he, the vital breath of prosperity. When you place salt while it's still dormant, when you drop it into a corner without intention, you're not attracting wealth. You're just placing something that looks like a ritual, but lives like a shadow. Salt that hasn't been activated doesn't carry your energy. It just sits, like a song never sung, like a doorway never opened. And worse, it becomes something you forget. Until one day, you realize you've surrounded yourself with silence and called it a spiritual tool. So tonight, we change that. We stop placing salt. We start waking it. Because the truth is simple. The power is not in the salt. The power is in your energy, living inside it. Let's cleanse what's asleep. Let's begin again. This time, with presence. Salt remembers everything. Every space it's touched. Every vibration it has absorbed. Every breath of energy, pure or heavy, it has quietly held. That's what makes salt powerful. But it's also what makes it dangerous when it is not cleansed. You see, even if you bought it new, even if it's pure by the label, it still carries frequencies from storage rooms, factory lines, plastic packaging, and the hundreds of silent vibrations it passed through before it reached your hands. In feng shui, this is a critical layer. Every object in your home carries energy. And if the tool you're using to clear is already carrying stagnant qi, you're not cleansing, you're layering. Layering confusion, layering blocks, layering silence over silence. So how do we begin again? How do we return the salt to its original function? To become a clean vessel for wealth flow, we cleanse it, not just with water, but with light, with sound, and with spirit. So how do we begin again? How do we return the salt to its original function? To become a clean vessel for wealth flow, we cleanse it, not just with water, but with light, with sound, and with spirit. Ritual. Step 1. Sunlight cleanse. Place your salt under early morning sunlight. Not harsh, not midday, just the first breath of the sun when the air is still soft. Let it sit for at least 15-20 minutes. Sunlight carries a frequency of renewal. It reorders the crystalline pattern of salt. It burns away stagnant traces without words. And once the light has done its quiet work, it's time to stir vibration. Because some energies can only be broken by sound. Ritual step 2. Sound reset. Use a gentle bell, a sound bowl, or even your own voice. Let the sound ripple across the surface. Break the stillness. Let vibration move through structure. Salt listens. Salt responds. Now that light and sound have opened the surface, there's one last touch it needs. Your breath, your presence. Not just vibration, but your living qi. Ritual step 3. Breath intention. Hold the bowl. Bring it close. Close your eyes. Take a deep, steady breath and exhale over the surface. Not to blow, but to offer the breath that carries your qi. This is the moment you begin to place your own energy into the vessel. You may wonder, why do these steps feel ancient yet strangely precise? Because even now, modern science is beginning to understand what ancient rituals always knew. Modern research in molecular vibration shows that salt's lattice structure is highly responsive to electromagnetic and sound waves. Water and salt are two of the most impressionable materials when it comes to energetic imprint. That's why ancient cultures didn't just use salt. They blessed it. They sang to it. They placed it in sacred geometry. In today's words, they were aligning energy frequencies to create a conduit for flow. But long before we had labs and graphs, wisdom was passed through breath, through practice, through quiet example. Let me tell you a story. In a temple garden in Kyoto, a monk once told his disciple, "Before you place the salt, place your peace." Each morning, he would cleanse his salt with incense, whisper over it, and only then would he sprinkle it along the temple path. He believed that salt is not the protector. Your chi is. Salt is only the bridge. And if your chi is scattered, salt cannot hold your wealth. How many times have you skipped this step? How many times have you asked for clarity, using something clouded? Before you charge your salt, cleanse it. Before you program abundance, clear the space. Let's move on to the ritual, where your salt begins to carry wealth. And so, the lesson is clear. From temples to today, from Kyoto to your living room. We don't place salt to begin. We cleanse it to prepare. We arrive first, so the chi can follow. Before we begin the final ritual, there's something I need to tell you. Something personal. Because the truth is, I didn't always believe in this. I used salt the way most people do. Followed the steps, read the articles, placed it by the door. I hoped it would help, but inside, I didn't feel anything. No shift, no change, just more silence. And for a long time, I thought maybe this wasn't real. Maybe energy didn't work for me. Maybe wealth just wasn't meant to flow through my life. But over time, something changed. It wasn't the salt. It was the way I showed up to the ritual. The way I breathed. The way I spoke. The way I stopped rushing and started listening. I realized salt was never the magic. I was. And salt was just the mirror. That's when I began to charge it. Not with wishes, but with presence. Not with hopes, but with a wealth signature that lived in my energy. And that's what I want to share with you now. Because once you learn how to place yourself into the ritual, you no longer chase abundance. You become the magnet. So now, let me guide you through the ritual that changed everything for me. The one where salt begins to carry your name in the energy of prosperity. Now that your salt has been cleansed, it is empty, but ready, waiting, like a bowl, just before the first drop of gold. In feng shui, this is the moment of alignment, because wealth doesn't just flow to purity, it flows to intention. And salt, when charged correctly, doesn't just attract, it remembers. It remembers your dream, your readiness, your name in the energy of abundance. So tonight, we imprint. We place the wealth signature inside the salt, not through magic, but through presence. Let's begin. Step 1. Prepare a clean, clear jar. Choose a small jar, glass or ceramic. Something that feels light, soft in your hands, natural. This jar is not just a container. It is a vessel, a temple, and what you place inside will begin to grow roots in the energetic field around you. Now, bring the salt, the one you just cleansed. Touch it gently. Feel the coolness, the silence that now waits to be named. Step 2. Pour salt into the jar, slowly with intention. Let it fall like snow. Let it sound like soft sand. Each grain receives your energy. Visualize. As it pours, you are building a foundation, like soil for the tree of wealth. Step 3. Add a coin, your wealth conductor. Choose a coin, gold or silver if possible, not for value, but for resonance. In energy theory, metal is a conductor. It anchors, It remembers shape, frequency, flow. Let this coin become the magnet inside your seed. Place it gently in the center of the salt. Not dropped, placed. Now, it is time to give the salt your signature, but not as a wish, not as a hope. Write it, as if it has already bloomed. Step 4. Write your intention as a wealth already received statement. Use present tense. Use clarity. Use emotion. Instead of, I want to attract more money, say, I now live in financial ease. My wealth supports me with grace and freedom. Fold the paper. Hold it to your chest. Breathe into it once. Let your warmth become the ink. Then, place it inside the salt. Let it rest between grains. Let it be held. Step 5. Seal the jar, not just with a lid, but with knowing. Close the jar. Hold it in both hands. Whisper softly, you now carry my abundance. You now hold the shape of wealth around me. I release the how, and I open the flow. This is not a closing. This is a planting. Place the jar somewhere sacred, private, still, where it can listen, where your life can speak to it in small ways. Let it stay. Let it watch. Let it work. Because wealth is not rushed. It is invited. How often have you asked for more, but never imprinted what more means to you? Tonight, that changes. Now, the energy around you has a shape, a pulse, a home, and that home is salt. Why salt can hold intention and attract wealth energy? You may wonder, can salt really do this? Can a crystal, a grain of the earth, hold energy, carry intention, and quietly reshape the flow of abundance? Science has an answer. Salt is not just a mineral. It is a geometric matrix, a crystalline structure designed to stabilize, store, and transmit energy. Just like quartz, just like crystal radios, just like the memory chips in your devices, built on the same principle: vibration, frequency, order. When you speak into salt, with breath, emotion, and clarity, you are not performing magic. You are performing resonance imprinting. And when combined with conductive elements like copper or silver, and sealed in a container that limits energy leakage, you create a localized energetic field. What does that mean? It means your wish doesn't just vanish into thin air. It lives, it stays, and it begins to radiate. In feng shui, we understand this as qi anchoring, a way to plant a pulse, a frequency of wealth, into the invisible currents of your home. So when you place this charged salt jar in a sacred spot, you're not hoping, you're activating, you're allowing your personal wealth signal to quietly shape the qi around you. You know, I've shared the steps, the rituals, the science, the meanings, but there's something I haven't shared, something I always hold back. Until now, I still remember the first time I placed my own salt jar. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't elegant. I didn't have the perfect coin. The words didn't sound spiritual. I wasn't even sure if I believed what I was doing, but something in me said, try anyway, and so I did. I poured the salt slowly, even though my hands shook. I placed the coin gently, even though I doubted its meaning. I wrote my intention, and it didn't feel magical. It felt honest. Small, but real. That night, I sat with it. No incense, no candles, just me, and that jar, and a silence that felt strangely alive. The next morning, nothing had changed. Bills still existed. Emails still came. But the air in my room felt just a little bit lighter. And inside me, something had shifted. Not because the salt worked overnight, but because I showed up for the first time. I chose to believe, not because someone told me to, but because I wanted to see what happened when energy and action finally moved in the same direction. Since then, I've changed many things. The way I breathe before working, the way I speak to my space, the way I hold money, not just as numbers, but as energy. But I never forgot that night, that one jar, that quiet choice, that invisible shift. So if you feel unsure right now, if your ritual didn't feel perfect, if your intention didn't sound poetic, that's okay. Rituals don't work because they're flawless. They work because you show up. And tonight, if you did, you are not waiting anymore. You are already aligned. And salt now carries your name. In the language of wealth, I am no longer hoping. I am remembering. And what I remember returns to me. That was my first jar, my first ritual, my first whisper into the dark. And maybe tonight, what you've just done is yours. No matter how small it felt, no matter how unsure it seemed, this is where it begins. Because in every quiet ritual, there is a ripple. And in that ripple, there is change. So now, as this journey closes, let's return to the room around you, to the space you live in, to the chi that is now quietly shifting in corners you cannot yet see. Let's seal this energy with presence, with breath, and with a final blessing for the wealth already on its way. You've done more than just follow steps. You've awakened something. Not just in salt, but in you. Because in feng shui, a small action done with full presence has the power to move entire rivers of qi. And today, with light, sound, breath, and clarity, you've created more than a jar. You've planted a signal, a field, a quiet current of wealth that now moves with you. This is not superstition. It is alignment. This is not about chasing wealth, but inviting it home. So place your salt where it can listen, where it can hum softly in the background, where your intention doesn't need to shout, because it already lives. And when your eyes fall upon it in the days to come, don't ask for more. Just breathe. And remember, the energy has already begun. What part of this ritual spoke to your heart the most? Was it the breath? The coin? The knowing? Tell me below. Not because I need to know, but because typing it seals it in you. I energize what I welcome. I release what no longer aligns. And I now move with the quiet power of wealth already flowing.